Thank you for joining this week's episode of All the Things They Don't Want You to Know. This week I've got a fantastic co-host. My name is Angie Dunn. If you have never viewed me before, boy, you're missing out. You definitely should hit subscribe to this channel. You should also probably go check me out on some of the other social medias so you can get some of that great content. But today we're really going to talk about how we can use some of those qualified funds. We can turn it into some tax-free assets. We're going to really deep dive into some taxes, but also touch on some long-term care. Now, I have a co-host today. Mike, if you don't mind, go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and what is your background?
So I've been helping clients and advisors plan for long-term care most of my career, about 27 years. I do this specifically because of what I've seen in my own family. I've had several family members that have needed care, but most recently with a grandmother that had dementia for a decade.
Oh, wow.
So I've seen firsthand how important it is to have a planning conversation. But that's why I only work with independent advisors, because this is not about insurance. This is really about financial planning. So I always encourage clients to sit down with someone like yourself to really talk about what do they want to happen. Everyone has a plan, but if they haven't really put a plan together, that plan might not be the best one for them.
I love most that you said this is not really about insurance. I love that because, you know, most people, they instantly go on guard and they go, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. I've got plenty of that. When honestly, I don't think anybody's actually sat down and talked to them. And there are a lot of choices that they actually can make.
Well, and that's really what this conversation has evolved to, is really let's preserve as many choices as possible. People hear the words long-term care, they immediately think of all this negative stuff that is just not pleasant to think about. This is really about let's preserve as many choices as possible. No one has a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. But I find that if people get to the point where they might need care, they want to have as many choices as possible. That's why we plan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? Taxes, they're on clearance now. So I know we're going to talk a little bit about taxes and how we really can help save on some of that tax, not only in our lifetime, but maybe when we transfer that wealth to our children and our loved ones. So I thank you so much for coming here today. I am grateful. I know that you had quite a drive to get here, but I love that you've taken the time to help educate people out there of things that we can do. And stopping by with me, I appreciate it so much. So, Mike, tell me how we can possibly use some of those qualified plans and maybe turn it into some tax-free assets because, you know, taxes, they're on clearance right now. They really are. I know people don't believe that, but taxes are on clearance. How can we use some of that money potentially and turn it into a tax-free asset?
Well, it's an interesting question. I find a lot of people have most of their assets in some type of old 401k or TSP or IRA. There's been recent legislation that's changed the way that money is taxed. So we do have the opportunity to reposition it so that we have tax-free benefits, whether we need care or not.
Wow.
We actually have the ability to cover both spouses with one spouse's qualified money.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So, you know, me, I know I was talking to you before and I was telling you how my grandmother, you know, she worked her whole life and she worked for the school system and she ended up having, you know, like a couple of heart attacks and a stroke and we really didn't plan, or she didn't plan. You know, she had this little pension plan. Of course, she had her Social Security, but we had no idea the massive debt that actually was going to come from those heart attacks, you know. And had somebody taken the time to really explain to her how she could have done this, it could have tremendously helped her, you know, in my opinion, just outside looking in. How many Americans do you think, you know, just really and truly end up needing some form of care as we get older?
So this is kind of a newer problem. More and more people are being affected. A lot of this is just due to medical science. You know, things like breast cancer, prostate cancer, those are pretty simple outpatient surgeries. So we're living through all different forms of cancer, heart disease. We're getting things like Alzheimer's and dementia at greater rates. Now, the statistics, unfortunately, are a little scary. The big, scary statistic is that about 70% of people are going to need some type of care. So it's more and more people. A lot of this is just due to all the baby boomers retiring at the same time. So we've got a lot of people that, you know, they're running around enjoying retirement now, but we're already seeing more and more people need care than ever before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know that I ever knew that you actually could take qualified money and put it into a tax-free vehicle that can help take care of that for us. Until we had our conversation, this whole thing is what people don't know. Well, I mean, it's not disclosed. Like, nobody really comes into the workplace and says, hey, did you know that you could take those old 401k plans or those old annuities and you can actually put it in a tax-free vehicle that not only is going to help transfer with wealth and that tax problem that we're all going to have, but also could help with some of those long-term care issues that, let's face it, I mean, we all know somebody, mother, father, grandmother, aunt, uncle, cousin, somebody needed some form of care and they probably weren't prepared. And they weren't prepared because nobody told them.
About half my conversations are more about taxes. Sometimes we just want to find the most tax efficient use of our resources. Mm-hmm. And the government has seen this as an issue for years. They do not want people on Medicaid. It's a huge loss for them. So they've been trying to give us additional tax incentives to do this type of planning on our own. So there have been some pieces of legislation, some changes in the tax code, really so that we can reposition existing assets so that they are tax-free if we need care, which is something likely to happen to most people.
Oh, absolutely. And to have it tax-free, my gosh, I mean, we really can't beat that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm concerned with the taxes increasing in the years to come. I am. I don't know what taxes are going to be in 10 or 20 or even 30 years from now. And it's kind of scary to think if you really want to know. I mean, we look at, Medicare is almost broke. Social Security is almost broke. And when we're like $37 trillion in debt, in my opinion, taxes are going to have to go up. It's just no way around it.
Yeah, it seems like we're going to have to pay for this somehow. And unfortunately, because needing care has been a newer problem, really over the last 10 to 20 years, this conversation's changed pretty significantly. And most people have simply failed to plan. Mm. Unfortunately, if you fail to plan, you still have a plan. It just might not be the best one.
Right.
So it's important that people get themselves educated on some of these different opportunities to really make sure that their financial plan is doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, talking about taxes, and we're going to talk a little bit about loss. I know yesterday the stock market lost, $3 trillion, trillion with a T. But I've got a lot of people that have old annuities out there. Can they use those old annuities to be able to maybe transition that into some tax-free or not even just tax-free money to transfer to their loved ones? But how about, can they use those old annuities to be able to purchase that long-term care benefit?
They can. So we see this a lot where clients have these annuities, which they can be a very important savings vehicle. They grow tax deferred, but ultimately when you go to use the annuity for income, they are taxable. So a lot of people end up just leaving the annuity money to the kids, but then of course the kids have to pay taxes on it. So the government saw this years ago as an opportunity to give another tax incentive. They passed what's called the Pension Protection Act, which did a bunch of things. But the biggest thing it did for this area of planning was it created a special annuity that can be used tax-free to pay for care. So now we can take that old annuity, which might have a bunch of taxable gains, we can reposition it so that it's tax-free for something likely to happen.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Because I talk to a lot of clients and they've got a lot of annuities and they really don't know what to do with them. They're just kind of sitting around, and some say, well, I'll just leave those to my kids. Mm-hmm. But all you're doing is passing that tax burden to your children, and taxes are definitely going to be higher by the time their children use those assets for sure. Mm-hmm. How about inherited IRAs? That's the same thing. So I want people to understand that annuity is one thing, but an IRA is basically the exact same thing and can be done the exact same way, right?
It can. So that's actually how I'm funding my personal long-term care policy. Wife and I inherited some IRA money a few years ago. Now, tax laws around inheriting that IRA money have changed. So now they force you to take it within a 10-year period, which significantly increases the taxes the kids have to pay if they inherit that money. So now we have the opportunity to reposition something that we have to pay taxes on no matter what, but then we can use it tax-free if we need to pay for care.
Fantastic. I like that because, that 10-year thing, it's pretty tough because, it could throw you in a higher tax bracket depending on how much that inherited IRA is. And then you're stuck with the tax burden. And yes, you're happy that your parents left you this money, but at the same sense, you're like, man, I just got thrown in a higher tax bracket just because I needed to move those assets,
Right.
you know? And if you look at me, my family, you know, we don't have the best genes. Okay, let's just face it, we don't. You know, mother, father, everybody seems to have some health issues. I'm still young, but I want to prepare. I want to know that if something come up, that you know I've got choices basically, and I don't want to leave that burden on my children to have to figure out how they're going to pay for something, or are they going to put me in a nursing facility, or you know, are they going to have somebody come in the home? I don't want that burden to be on my children. So I want to be prepared as much as possible right now. Now, I have to ask you, would you mind showing us some examples of how we really could get that to work for us?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
So one of my favorite clients I met a few years ago, her name is Victoria. Now, when I met Victoria, she was a widow. She had 2 sons, but they lived a couple of states away. So needing care was a big concern for her. Asked her a very simple question. Victoria, you may never need care, but if you do, what money would you use? What asset would you have to use to cover those care expenses? She said, Mike, I've got this old annuity. It's got a lot of gains. She had put in $100,000, but it had grown to $300,000, so $200,000 of gains. She said, Mike, that is my emergency bucket for care. So I was glad she had thought about this and had some resources, but that is a problem because an annuity, when it's used, is taxable. So if she needed home care, she would need to pull out $90,000 in order to get $70,000 after taxes. That would make her Social Security taxable. That'd raise her Part B Medicare. That creates problems. Well, the government saw this as an opportunity years ago. They put a special provision in the tax code that created a very special annuity that we can use tax-free to pay for care. So with Victoria, she was 83. We certainly can't have an insurance conversation, but we were able to do a simple tax-free exchange into our special annuity, which is compliant with the Pension Protection Act, which means that this special annuity, when she uses it for care, it's all tax-free, specifically to cover those care expenses. So we were able to take a great asset, which grows tax deferred, but ultimately is taxable, and now we can utilize it tax-free for something likely to happen. Much more tax efficient use of assets.
Mike, thank you so much for stopping by today. I mean, I think I've learned a lot. And I've been in this industry for 20 plus years, but a lot of that I didn't know myself. You know, like I feel like everybody will have a lot of questions on this. Guys, next time I want you to tune in to all the things that I want you to know. What do? We basically spill the tea. Because let's face it, nobody is coming into your workplace, nobody's coming into your home and telling you how you can take advantages of ways that you can not only grow your money tax-free, but use your money tax-free. Mike, I appreciate you coming by. Come on by again and let's talk again.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. You do some good work out there. Thanks for all the people that you're helping.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike.